So 2021 is done, and with it came a lot of great films. To me, 2021 was a massive improvement over 2020 in terms of film releases. Not saying that the films that came out in 2020 were bad, just barely any films came out at all. So here are some of my favourite films to come out in 2021. Now, some of these could be classed as 2020 films because they came out in 2020 in certain other countries, maybe like in December or November, but over here in the UK, these all came out in 2021, and that's when I saw them. Now, before I get into the list, I should say that I haven't seen every film that came out in 2021. There's still some films on my to-watch list that I haven't got around to watching yet. And I'm sure that if you ask me in a month or even a few weeks from now, the list would probably look a little bit different. You know, the order of things would be shifted about. But for right now, this is where my list sits at. And this is also going to be a very subjective list. You know, a film's going to impact me differently than it's going to impact you. My top 5 I'm going to go into more detail on, but before I get into those, here are some honourable mentions and some films that I really liked that I think you should check out if you haven't already. No Time to Die. After being pushed back multiple times and a year and a half after it was supposed to come out, we finally got it. A great action movie with some amazing action scenes, stunt work, cinematography, music, and a great send-off to Daniel Craig's portrayal as Bond. King Richard, a great feel-good movie with some of the best acting that I've seen from Will Smith since his 2008 film, The Pursuit of Happiness. Last Night in Soho, one of the more unique films I've seen this year from Edgar Wright. Really going into a topic I rarely see addressed in any media, which is how we often romanticise the past and feel nostalgic for a time period that we often have never even lived in. But if we really saw what life was like back then, especially for women, we probably wouldn't like what we saw and be a little bit horrified by it. Minamata, a harrowing true story of how corporate callousness and greed can affect everyday people's lives in the worst way possible, filled with some truly stunning cinematography and performances throughout. Swan Song. Acting almost like a feature-length episode of Black Mirror, Swan Song poses an incredibly interesting thought experiment into what we would do to prevent our loved ones experiencing pain that have me constantly thinking, what's going to happen next? With some great acting from Mahershala Ali. Dune. The great Denis Villeneuve returns with some masterful filmmaking in Dune, a film that I really liked, but I think I'll like even more in a few years when his Dune duology or trilogy is done. As for now, on its own, it very much feels like a part 1 and incomplete, which isn't a negative, by the way, just, you know, it is what it is. The Last Duel. Ridley Scott brings us a historical epic that was so refreshing to see. I love stories where the narrative is told from multiple perspectives, which I feel The Last Duel does great. Not only that, but the acting is amazing, the production design is amazing, the sound is amazing, and the action, when it does happen, feels so brutal and was thrilling to watch. Please check this one out if you get the chance. It did not get enough eyes on it when it was out in the cinema. A Quiet Place Part 2. A great follow-up to John Krasinski's first entry that still remains the perfect execution of tension and suspense. The Suicide Squad. One of the most unique comic book films I've seen in a long time. The Suicide Squad was filled with great action, laughs, visuals, heart, and amazing, instantly likeable characters. James Gunn really knocked it out of the park. Riders of Justice, or That, is a movie I never hear talked about, especially when it comes to the best of the year, and it really should. Starring one of my 2 favourite actors working today, Mads Mikkelsen. Riders of Justice is not only funny, but is also thrilling, violent, moving, and had me constantly guessing where the story was going to go next. Definitely check this one out if you get the chance. Another Round, another dark comedic Danish movie starring Mads Mikkelsen. Another Round is energetic, amazingly shot and well acted. If you haven't heard of it, it's about 4 middle-aged high school teachers who take part in an experiment in consuming alcohol on a daily basis to reach a blood alcohol content of 0.05% to see how it affects their social and professional lives. So you can see where the comedy comes in. It did a really good job of teaching us the lessons of overindulgence, but in an extremely entertaining and original way. Now for the top 5. These films have kind of shifted around in the ranking quite a bit. Honestly, any of these could have been number 1, but for right now, this is where they stand. Tick Tick Boom. Andrew Garfield, my other favourite actor working today, stars in my favourite musical to release this year. Even though the film deals with the topics of failure, the state of anxiety that is your 20s, and comparing your life achievements to others, it overall has a great message of hope, optimism, and how failing can get you closer to your goals. It was by far the most relatable film to release in 2021 for me. Zack Snyder's Justice League, a film that got hashtagged into existence. Zack Snyder's Justice League is an epic cinematic experience that never once bored me, never once felt like it dragged, and never once felt like it was over 4 hours long. Seeing Zack Snyder present his unaltered vision of this project was amazing to see. Some people complain about the 4:3 aspect ratio, but I honestly love it. I love seeing the full IMAX frame. A lot of platforms, when they do the IMAX enhanced version, they just take off the black bars on the top of the bottom and it goes from a 2:3:9 aspect ratio to a 16:9 aspect ratio, which, yeah, you're getting more of the image, but you're not seeing the full image. So it was nice that this film didn't do that and we got to see the entire IMAX image. This cut is infinitely better than the 2017 version. So much more depth is added to the characters, especially Cyborg. Ray Fisher did a really great job. Ezra Miller's Flash was also given way more to do and was shown to almost be the main hero by the end. There are so many great, instantly iconic visuals throughout the film, and even the scenes that we did have in the 2017 version were vastly improved with a better editing pace and better colouring, all mixed with an amazing score by Junkie XL. This is by far my favourite entry into DC's cinematic universe, and it's very inspiring from a filmmaking aspect that Snyder got to bring his vision to life. Mass. Mass is actually a pretty recent watch, but the second it finished, it had to go like right in the top 3 of the year. Mass had me gripped from start to finish. Directed by Frank Kranz, Mass is almost like a stage play in that it all takes place in one location and is driven purely by the performances, and these are all Academy level performances, especially Jason Isaacs. Mass is about two couples discussing how a violent tragedy affected them in different ways. As the film is completely centered on this, I'm not going to give you any more details on what the tragedy is, as I think it's actually better if you watch it with little to no prior knowledge going in. It's definitely not a laid back slouch on the couch with the kids kind of vibe. You definitely need to be like in the mood to watch it, because the film very much has a message. It actually has multiple messages, one of them being one that I've been trying to preach for a while now, that if we just sort of come together and talk, you know, maybe one side isn't as bad as we like to paint them out from a distance. The Father. Anthony Hopkins gives the best performance of the year in this incredible film that really hit me on a personal level. The Father is about a man who is suffering with dementia, who is trying to make sense of his changing circumstances and how it is affecting him and the people around him. What's so interesting about this film is that it is entirely told from Anthony Hopkins' point of view. We get to see how someone with dementia would interpret certain things and the effect that has on them. For example, the daughter in the film, who is played brilliantly by Olivia Colman, will say one thing, and then later on in the film will be played by another actress and will say something contradictory. I've only seen the film once, and I know it might sound weird, but I don't really know if I want to see it again. The impact it kind of had on me was quite big, so I don't know if I'm emotionally ready to go through that again. As someone who in the last 5 years has lost family to dementia and currently has family that is going through it, the film really did help me kind of maybe see what they're going through, you know, internally, how I can help, and, you know, see things from their point of view. So for that reason, it's one of the best films of the year for me. I would highly recommend watching it, but just make sure you have some tissues ready, because you're gonna get misty-eyed, not gonna lie. Okay, so now at number 1, this is a film that was definitely one of the biggest cinematic experiences for me in the last few years. One that I've watched multiple times now and love it almost even more with every viewing, and that is, of course, Resident. Absolute peak cinema. There is just nothing quite like... Of course, I'm kidding. Spider-Man No Way Home. My favourite cinema experience in years. After many attempts, Spider-Man No Way Home was the big return to cinemas since the pandemic for many people, and my god, what a film to do it. As someone who's been a fan of this character since forever, to me, this is the best outing for this character since Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 back in 2004. And I think it's my favourite MCU film, period. I actually had to watch this film a few times because on the first go round, I genuinely couldn't process what I was seeing at times. I knew we were going to see characters return, but I genuinely thought that they were just going to be very quick throwaway cameos, but they weren't at all. The returning characters here were fully fleshed out and had a big impact on the story. It wasn't a cheap nostalgia grab either. Everything felt very meaningful to the plot of the film. One being Charlie Cox returning as Matt f***ing Murdock. Listen, yeah, Daredevil is my favourite thing to come out of the MCU. And when it ended, I was... Is it too overdramatic to use the word distraught? But you get what I mean. So when I saw him come back, it was a religious experience, what can I say? Another highlight was the return of my favourite Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield. That man was running circles around everyone, which is mental because everyone in the film was doing an amazing job, especially Tom Holland, who has given the best performance of his career in my opinion, and who I also love as his character, and I just can't wait to see what they're going to do with his iteration of the character next. And those are my favourite films of 2021. Overall, pretty banging year. And it looks like 2022 could be even better than 2021. Let me know what you thought of this list. Again, I would love to see your versions of this list. I'm definitely going to be in the comments reading them. Make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And I will see you guys next month.